morning, everybody. Ms. Quintana, you're still under oath. I'm going to go ahead and have Melissa get that microphone on you so we can all hear you. Let's go ahead and put it on the right side because I think it angles better. Let's put it on the other side. Yeah, thank you.
Good morning, Ms. Quintana.
Good morning.
I just have a few more questions for you. So yesterday we were looking at Exhibit 3, and you were explaining that that your window is here. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that your window was open that night?
Yes, it was.
And that there was a man. How many people were outside your window? Do you know?
I believe like 2.
Were you able to see them?
I looked outside, but I didn't really get like a good look of who was outside.
Okay. But you heard voices coming from over here. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And when the man said, "Be quiet, awake the neighbors," was he with the other person?
I believe so, yes.
They were together?
Yes.
And you said you heard a woman scream. Did she say something?
Yes, she said, no, stop. And that's whenever I heard the man saying, be quiet, you're going to wake up the neighbors.
And what kind of volume?
You need to hear the witness better? All right, and then I need you to speak up. Okay.
What kind of volume was he using? Was he loud? Was he talking softly?
I'd say like maybe like high pitch of like a man talking, like kind of loudly, yeah.
Okay. And did you recognize the voice?
No.
After he said, "Be quiet, awake the neighbors," did the woman he was with respond?
No.
Did you see where they went after that?
No.
Did you hear anything else that night?
No.
That's the witness, you're up.
Thank you. Ross?
Hello, Jessica Quintana.
Hi.
You talked to Victoria on her last day, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And she left an empty pan of cupcakes that she had brought to school. Do you remember that?
Maybe, yeah.
Okay. Did she leave that at your place at some point?
Probably, yeah.
All right. And do you remember that she showed you her kitten?
Yes, she did.
Was that the first time you saw her kitten with her?
Yes.
And everything seemed fine at that point.
Yes.
She was happy.
Yes.
And was that the first day of school for the older kids like yourself?
I believe so, yeah.
But the younger kids had already been going to school maybe a week or so.
Yes.
What time does the bus come home for the older kids?
For the high schoolers,
High school.
I'd say make 2:30.
Okay, so pretty early. And then is there middle school and then grade school? Is that how it works?
Yes.
Do you know what time those two come? The buses for middle school and the bus for the elementary school?
For the morning or the afternoon?
Afternoon when they come home.
For middle school, I'd say like 3:30 or 3:30ish. And then like the elementary gets out at 4.
Okay. Now you were outside with some friends that into the early evening there, is that correct?
Yes.
And the friends were Marcos Romero, Denise de los Santos, and Larry Hamilton.
Yes.
And they were outside a little longer than you were. They were already out there when you came out.
Yes.
Now, there were other people outside as well.
I believe so, yeah.
I mean, it was an evening in the summer, and a lot of people are outside at evening, aren't they?
Yes.
Did you ever see a strange man around Victoria's apartment?
No.
Now, I want to ask you when, who we know as Jessica, brought out Victoria. Did you know who that woman was who was carrying her?
No.
And if you could describe again, how was she carrying her?
Like she was just like holding her, like kind of like this in her arms. Like Victoria was like right here.
Okay. And you thought Victoria was asleep.
Yes.
But at one point, you saw her leg was showing from the blanket. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you remember the color of her legging, what color it was?
You mean the blanket?
No, if she, whatever was underneath the blanket.
I didn't see any like clothing on her.
Okay. Now, did Jessica kind of give you a dirty look when this was happening?
I believe so, yes.
I think you once said it was like mind your own business look. Is that what you got from the look?
Yeah.
Of course, you don't know what she was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And did she kind of drop the child at some point? Not actually drop it, kind of...
Like fake drop her? Yes.
Yeah. And what did you say?
Fake drop her?
So it felt like a fake drop, maybe.
Yes.
What happened next?
Then Jessica approached the car where Michelle and Fabian were in.
Okay. And did she ever get to the car or get inside the car?
No, she did not get inside the car.
Now, you thought everything was fine and that Michelle and Fabian were going to take Victoria out somewhere on her birthday, didn't you?
Yes.
You had no idea that Victoria was already dead.
No.
Now, if we go ahead to 4:15 in the morning, that's what time you heard a noise, didn't you?
Yes.
And was this noise from inside the apartment, or was it outside?
I heard noise inside the apartment.
Okay, so when you heard that high-pitched scream, it came from inside Michelle's apartment, not the outside, correct?
Not at first. It was outside too. I heard it too.
Later on, and we'll talk about that in a minute. but-
Okay.
Yes. Can't hear. So scooch closer to that microphone. And I'm going to need you to like lean right into it and speak very loudly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. You heard a high-pitched scream. The first noise you heard was a high-pitched scream coming from inside the apartment. Is that right?
Yes.
And was that a female or a male adult voice, or do you even can you tell us if you had a sense of what kind of person was making this high-pitched scream?
I didn't know who it was who was screaming. Like, I just thought, like, at those apartments, there's always, like, couples fighting, and I just thought, oh, it's another couple fighting. That's what I thought.
Yeah, you thought it was just a domestic in one of the apartments, right?
Yes.
You did not hear banging, just that scream.
Yes.
And then there was a quiet period, wasn't there?
Yes, there was.
Didn't you hear a man say, "Be quiet, you'll wake up the neighbors"?
Yes.
Did you hear more fighting after he said that?
No.
Did you see how Fabian got outside?
No.
But you do hear a door slam.
Yes.
And then, at some point, did you hear fire detectors alarms going off?
Yes.
And how long did that last?
Maybe like 20 or 10 minutes, I believe so.
So that's a long time.
Yes.
Were you aware of either of Fabian pounding on doors outside?
No.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
May this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. You may step down. Next witness?
One second, Your Honor. We would just inquire with our paralegal.
Okay.
All right, let's see, we'll call Mariah Flores.
All right. Ms. Flores, go ahead and raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
If you have a seat, you'll see a microphone there in front of you. I'm now going to put that lapel one on your right side as well.
Thank you.
And just make sure you lean towards, we need both microphones being used, so lean towards it so that everyone can hear you.
Okay.
State your name, please.
Mariah Bitta?
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good morning, Ms. Bitta. Was your maiden name Flores?
Yes.
And did you go by Mariah Flores in 2016?
Yes.
And what do you currently do?
I work for a Presbyterian Insurance. I'm a claims analyst.
Did you live in the Arroyo Villas apartments in 2016?
Yes, I did.
And what apartment were you in?
408.
And where is apartment 408 in relation to apartment 808?
It's the adjacent building, the adjacent duplex.
Can't hear. Can you hear neither? Just the witness. So I need you to speak up even louder.
Okay.
And so, does this reflect a map of the Arroyo Villas apartment?
Yes, it does.
And so if 808 is here,
I was south of that. Yes, right there on the top floor.
the top floor.
Yes.
And were you a student at that time?
I had just graduated high school, and I think the next week I started college at CNN.
Okay, and who were you living with?
I was living with my mom.
Did you know Michelle Martens and Victoria Martens?
Yes, as neighbors, we would see them outside all the time. We lived there, I think, for 3 years, and they were living there. They had been living there since we had lived there.
Did you talk to them frequently?
Yeah, if Victoria was outside, we would talk to Victoria. I never really talked to Michelle. She used to date the neighbor downstairs for a little while. And that was like the only time like I ever had contact with her. But if Victoria was outside, she would always talk to me.
How did both of them seem to you? How did Michelle seem to you?
Like on a normal day,
Yes.
fine. I mean, I know that summer she was working 2 jobs, and they had moved from the building I was in into the building that they had been in at the time in 2016. And Michelle was a good mom as far as I could tell.
And how about Victoria? So you said that they lived in the same building as you, building 4, and then they moved into building 8?
Yeah, they used to have a 2-bedroom apartment, and then they moved up to the bigger one.
And how about Victoria? How is she?
Oh, that girl was just always so happy and bubbly and talking all the time.
Did you spend a lot of time with her?
No, I would come home from like picking up my sisters or going to a friend's house or coming home from work, and she'd be outside if it was still daylight. All the kids would in that like corner would just play in the grass all the time.
And how about Michelle's boyfriend? Did you notice whether she had a new boyfriend in August of 2016?
The first and only time I had ever seen him was the day before we called the cops.
Okay, so let's
The
stop there. So
22nd.
when you called the police, was it early morning hours or was it at night?
Early morning.
Okay, so that would be on August 24th, is that right?
Correct, yes.
And so what was the day that you saw him? Was that August 23rd or August 22nd?
The 23rd, it was the day before.
And do you remember that day? August 23rd?
Yeah, yes I do. I had gone and I was babysitting my cousin right up the street on Irving, and I came home probably, I would say around 4:15, 4:30. Sat in my car because I used to just sit on my phone and be on like Facebook or Snapchat or something for a while. I got out of my car, and when I got out of my car, I went around my car to get something from the back seat, and I heard loud music driving up, coming into the apartment. And it made me look, and it was Michelle's car,
And who was driving her car?
Fabian.
And was Michelle in the car as well?
Yes, I believe so.
Was it unusual to see someone else driving Michelle's car?
Yeah, that's why it caught my eye, because I had never seen anybody else besides Michelle driving her car.
And you heard loud music. What else did you hear or see?
I don't remember what kind of music it was. I just remember it being very loud and very like, I'm here. So when I was getting my stuff out of the car, it made me look that he was driving, because I'd never seen him before, so I kind of watched him. And I just got like this really weird, eerie feeling. And I just had never seen him before. It was very weird.
So you talked about an eerie feeling. Can you describe that? Like, what made you feel like there was something in this?
It's kind of hard for me to explain like what made me feel that way. Something wasn't right. I just got like a really uneasy feeling, but it wasn't anything that anybody did. It was just this weird feeling.
Okay, so you see the car pull into the parking lot and there's loud music. Where did they park?
They parked about, I would say in the middle of that like long stretch of, not directly underneath their staircase, but maybe to the right if you're looking straight at the building.
So if this is 808, somewhere kind of like in here?
Yes.
And did you see them get out of the car?
I saw Fabian get out of the car. I was so fixated on the fact that I'd never seen him before that I just kind of watched him for a brief, few minutes, and then I wasn't trying to stare or anything, so I kind of just went along with the rest of my night after that.
Did you see him go into the apartment?
No.
Did they pull into the parking lot in a hurry or appear to be in a hurry?
It was kind of fast, yeah.
What about when he got out of the car? Did he appear to be in a hurry then?
As far as I can remember, he did get out like right away. But after he had gotten out and I got like a good look at him, I just went on my way.
Do you remember anyone else outside at that time? Did you see anyone on their stairway or anyone?
I know like the normal the neighbor Sabrina downstairs. She was always outside with her kids. Pauline was outside with the kids it was always Sabrina and Pauline outside with the kids. And there was always just random kids or just the same kids outside. So I do remember the kids and Sabrina and Pauline outside near the stairs.
And you said you thought this may have been around 4:30 p.m.?
Yeah. But I did sit in my car for a while, so I probably got there between 4:15 and 4:30. Probably got out of my car about 4:45.
Okay, so this is getting closer to 5 o'clock then.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Did you see anyone else around? Anyone on the steps going up to Demeanor Way?
No, I didn't look towards the steps or like upwards. I just remember seeing Fabian get out of the car, and it made me double look, and I kind of checked my surroundings as far as like for me, but other than that, I don't remember anybody else out of the usual or out of the norm there.
Okay. And you said the defendant caught your attention, or Michelle's boyfriend caught your attention as you got out of the car. Do you remember what he was wearing?
No, I don't really remember. I think it might have been, I know he was wearing a hat, I believe. And I noticed his tattoos that he had. But other than that, I really don't remember like what he was wearing.
Okay. So at that point, did you go into your apartment?
Yes.
Did you go out again that night?
No, I didn't.
And did anything unusual happen that night that you noticed? Any strange noises, any people out of place, anything like that? Or were you just inside?
Yeah, I just stayed inside. It was a fairly quiet night. I mean, usually if somebody's outside, like near like the bottom of our stairs, you can usually hear them. Or because my balcony faced Irving, you could hear people walking up and down, and it was quiet that night.
Okay. What about the next morning? What happened?
I woke up to my dogs barking really early in the morning. At first I thought it was like a dream, but when I actually came to, it was the dogs, and I got up to go check on my mom because that was the first week I had fully moved into my mom's apartment with her. And my mom was already at the door, and I asked her what's going on. She said somebody came knocking on the door asking for help, and she didn't open the door because our outside porch light went out that night. So we didn't open the door. But I remember I peeked out the door, and Fabian was walking around on the bottom portion of the stairs. That's when I caught him walking down the stairs.
Okay, so your apartment is here.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so you saw him on the stairs here? At the bottom section of that stairs?
Yeah, it's because it goes down and then there's like a flat surface and then it goes down again, and I caught him right at that level, that mid-level.
Sort of on the landing there?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so what did he do next?
He went down to the bottom neighbors below us, and he was knocking on their door. And then shortly after, I saw Michelle come out, and I told my mom to call 911.
So you said that he was knocking on the neighbor's door. Did they open the door for him?
They did.
Was that before or after Michelle got there?
Like, briefly before she got there.
And did he say anything to the neighbors?
He told them to call 911 and that somebody was after them. And then that's when Michelle came out.
Okay. And did she say anything?
She said she killed my daughter. And she kept saying it. And Michelle had blood coming down from her face. And as soon as I saw that, I told my mom to call the cops.
Okay. And what did Fabian say anything in response to Michelle?
Not that I can remember, because I think me and my mom were like trying to gather what we just saw and getting on the phone with the cops, because I believe shortly after the downstairs neighbor also shut their door until the cops arrived.
So you said you saw Michelle had some sort of injury to her forehead.
Yeah, she had like a gash in her forehead. Ooh. She had a gash in her forehead, and she had blood, and her shirt was like ripped a little bit, and her shirt, I remember, also had blood on it.
Okay. And what about Fabian? What was he wearing?
Shorts, like basketball shorts.
Okay. Did he have a shirt on?
No.
What about socks?
Yes, I believe he was wearing socks.
Okay. Did you notice anything about what he was wearing?
No. I do remember him taking his socks off, but I don't really specifically remember anything about his clothing.
Okay. What about anything else about how he looked?
He looked kind of out of it. So did Michelle. They both kind of looked out of it.
What do you mean by that?
Like I remember looking down because we had come, once we knew the cops were coming, or once the cops got there, I don't really remember, but me and my mom were standing on the stairs looking into the bottom apartment, and I just remember seeing Michelle's face, and she was looking up at us, and her eyes were so blue and big, like her eyes were so big, and we would ask her, like, where are the kids, because we knew she also had a son, and I hadn't seen the kids in a while, but Michelle, like, was not responding. Like, it was very, she was there, but she wasn't there. She was, like, I don't know how else to explain it.
And you said her eyes were blue and very big.
Yes.
Is that an unusual thing for her?
Yeah, she looked, it was very off-putting.
And you said you hadn't seen the kids for a while, so what happened in the days leading up to this? Was there much activity in the apartment, or were you there?
I had seen Victoria once, maybe a couple of days prior, so I knew Victoria was around. But even that summer, I knew that Michelle was also working 2 jobs, which I just figured that's probably why we didn't see the kids. I didn't see the kids, or we just were in passing, like we didn't see them because they were busy, or I was busy with work, so. But I hadn't seen Victoria's brother probably that entire summer.
Okay. What about other people? Did you see other people going in and out of her apartment?
Michelle seemed really busy with her jobs, and I was actually really happy for them because it seemed like she was doing really good.
So did you hear or see anything else after, while you were down the stairs looking into apartment, was it apartment 407?
I believe so. I'm a little fuzzy on the numbers, but yeah, the one directly below us. Michelle kept asking for her phone, and Fabian said, remember, she took our phones. Other than that, I was a little distracted with like the cops getting there, and I know at some point Michelle had a rag, I think, and she was wiping like blood off of her, but that's a very like fuzzy memory.
Okay, well, you just motioned towards your arms when you said she was wiping with, so where was she wiping?
As far as I can remember, she was just kind of like wiping herself, like not necessarily like just her arms. I really wasn't paying like too close attention to what exactly she was doing, but I remember her like with a rag wiping.
Did you notice whether she was wearing socks?
I don't remember if she was wearing socks.
Okay. And how about the towel? Was she doing anything unusual with the towel other than wiping?
No, it's not. It's a no.
And you said she kept asking for her phone. When you say she kept asking, how many times do you think she asked about her phone?
Probably like 2 or 3 times.
Okay. And did she mention Victoria again after that first time when she came in the apartment?
No.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
You may.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Cross.
Good morning, Mariah.
Good morning.
So you were a little older than the high school kids. You had already graduated, or?
Yes, I was 18.
Okay. Michelle was doing real good before this happened, wasn't she?
Yeah, as far as I could tell.
Everything you could tell, she'd moved from a 2-bedroom to the larger 3-bedroom
Yeah.
apartments.
Yeah.
From your building to the one just a little north of you.
Mhm.
Was yours a 3-bedroom too, because you were upstairs on the corner?
Yes, it was actually the exact layout, the
Okay.
same layout.
And was she on the upstairs or the downstairs when she was in your building?
She was on the downstairs. So there's like 2 duplexes in the building. I was in, if you're looking at the building, I was on the left side and she was on the right side on the bottom left portion.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Now, on the day in question, that evening, everybody was outside, weren't they?
Yeah, the normal neighbors.
Normal neighbors, they were all sort of hanging out
Mhm.
on a summer evening.
Yeah, all the kids would just play outside all the time. It was nice to see them out there.
And it was a safe place for the kids.
Yeah, for the most part.
You could play, you could swim, you could get on your scooter and go around.
Yeah, yeah. It was. I wasn't really too familiar with the rest of the complex, but in that corner itself was a very quiet, safe environment. I felt pretty safe there.
Now, you weren't looking for someone, but you didn't see anybody out of the ordinary or out of the norm, did you?
No, I didn't see anybody out of the ordinary. Besides Fabian.
Fabian was different because they pulled up, and this was the first time you had seen him.
Correct.
And you noticed he had tattoos, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I did notice that.
But she always has guys over there, doesn't she?
The 3 years that we had been there, I'd only seen like maybe 2 or 3 boyfriends besides Fabian. And she would be with them for quite a while.
All right. Now, did he do anything that made you feel, have that weird feeling?
No, he didn't do anything in particular. It was just, I think it was the fact that I had never seen him before, and I could just feel something was just not right.
Okay.
To the point it made me call my mom to tell her to let me know when she got home, because I just wanted to make sure that I could watch her come upstairs, or at least I knew she was in the parking lot when she got home.
But I think you'll agree there wasn't anything that he did or the way he looked at you or talked to anybody. He was pretty normal.
Yeah, for the most part, as far as I could tell.
Now, the next morning, it was, what was it about? What time would you say that you started hearing noises?
Like between 3:30 and 4.
Okay. And Fabian was knocking on your door upstairs, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
And did you or your mom is, I think, Charlene Benavides?
Yes.
Did either of you open the door?
Not for him, not until he was walking away, because the light, our porch light, was out. And my mom didn't recognize him. She didn't know that was the guy I was talking about the day before.
And he what was he, did he say anything as he's knocking on your door?
He had already left the door when I came to the door, so I didn't hear him. What woke me up was my dogs. And by the time I got to the door, he was already walking down the stairs. And I recognized him immediately.
Okay, you knew it was who you know now as Fabian Gonzales.
Correct.
Now, how loud was he pounding on the door?
I don't remember the pounding because the dogs, all I heard was the dogs when I woke up.
So the dogs actually woke you, not the pounding.
Correct.
But you did see him go down below you, and he was knocking on their door.
Yes.
And he was asking, saying that they needed to call 911 or something like that.
Yeah, he was asking the neighbors to call the cops or 911 because somebody was after them. Somebody was coming after them.
Okay. Could you hear his exact words or?
Yeah, I would say his exact words were, he was knocking and then he was saying, call the cops, call the cops. And then the neighbor came pretty quickly and opened the door and he said, somebody's after us, somebody's coming after us, call the cops. And then that's when Michelle came out.
Okay. Now, do you know the name of the neighbors that were below you?
Yeah, Rachel was the wife and Sullivan was the husband.
Okay, Rachel and Sullivan Scott?
Yes.
Okay. Now, do the sprinklers go on at night for the lawns, the grass?
Yeah, I think they would go off like at 10 or 11. Sometimes they would change just depending on the time of the year. But.
And I think we saw some water puddles. Is that from the sprinklers? Because I don't believe it rained that night.
No, it had to have been from the sprinklers, yeah.
Okay. And how much time between Fabian knocking or pounding on the Scott's door and when you see Michelle coming down the steps?
I would say within the minute of them opening the door, so I would say about a minute or maybe two, depending. It went by really fast.
And time's kind of tricky when you're watching something like this.
Yeah.
Let's back up a little bit. How much time would you say between when he's pounding on your door and when she shows up?
2-3 minutes.
Okay. It happened, all of it was pretty fast.
I would say it all, by the time he was walking up our stairs to the time Michelle came out, was about 5 minutes in total.
Okay. Now, when you saw Michelle, the first thing you see is that there's blood coming down her face.
Yeah, and the blood looked dry to me, as far as I can remember.
And is that when you said, okay, we got to call 911 ourselves?
Yeah, because we knew of Michelle. She was a neighbor, so, and the fact that what she said is what she said, I knew we needed to call the cops.
And what she said was, she said she killed my daughter.
Yes.
Now, how would you describe her, how she was saying that, her demeanor or her affect? What would you say about, we've got her words, but how was she expressing them?
She said it as she was walking towards the door, and it was very, like in a shock. So she was in shock. But she didn't really have like emotion on her face either.
Would you say it's sort of a flat affect?
Yeah.
Okay. And who was she talking to? Was she talking to Fabian or anyone else?
I think she was just talking in general because she knew that Fabian was getting help, and because she saw Fabian talking to the neighbor, she was just saying it. I don't think she was directing it Fabian or anybody
whoever would
specifically,
hear
yeah.
her. Okay.
Yeah.
And you saw that her shirt was ripped open a bit too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was slightly, it was like a tank top, and it was ripped like towards the top.
And she had not only blood on her face, but there was some blood on the rest of her person.
Yeah, I would say it was mainly like on her, like her chest and like maybe a little bit on her arms.
And at some point, you saw her take a rag to wipe off some of the blood.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yes.
Now, didn't it look like they had been sleeping and they just got out of bed?
I mean, not really. They didn't look like they had been like, you know how people have like bedhead? They didn't really look like that.
Do you remember saying it looked like they were sleeping or something when you gave your talk to the police?
I might have said that. It just has been quite a while.
And the only thing he was wearing was a pair of, shorts.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
He didn't have a shirt or...
No, he didn't.
Now, you remember her asking at some point here about her cell phone.
Yes.
And you remember Fabian saying, remember, she took our phones.
Correct.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
You were trying to pin down that uncomfortable feeling when you first saw the defendant in this case. Let me ask you, when they came in and you said you heard music, were the windows down?
I believe their windows were down.
And was it unusual for Michelle to pull into the parking lot with loud music and her windows down like that?
It was still kind of hot outside, so not necessarily the windows, but definitely the music.
And you said when you saw someone get out of that vehicle, it was the defendant, Fabian Gonzales, who got out.
Correct.
You didn't see Michelle get out of the car.
I don't remember seeing Michelle getting out of the car. It could just be because I was trying to figure out who he was.
And that next morning, after there was a knock on your door and you went down those steps, you were talking to Mr. Ahrens about what you heard. And you said you heard the defendant ask the Scotts to call 911 because someone was chasing them?
Yes.
Did he say anything about Victoria?
No.
Did he say anything about the baby?
No.
And when you saw Michelle wiping blood off, earlier you gestured along your arms like she was rubbing her arms, and then you rubbed along your chest area. Is that what you saw?
Yeah.
Was she folding the towel?
I don't remember.
And then you said that she asked about the phones 2 to 3 times.
Yeah.
After every time she asked, did the defendant tell her, remember, she took our phones, or was that just once?
He told her the same thing every time she'd ask.
Thank you. No further questions, Joe.
May this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. You may step back. Thank you. Next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Charlene Benavides.
Okay. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes, ma'am. Have a seat. We're going to get you set up with the microphone, and then I'll have you state your name. I'm going to stick your chair in real close because we use both those microphones. And if you would state your name first, please.
Charlene Benavides.
Good morning, Ms. Benavides.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Can you tell us, what do you do? What do you do for, are you working right now?
Yes, I work for an investment company.
Okay. And did you live at the Arroyo Villas apartment in August of 2016?
Yes,
What apartment did you live in?
408.
And in relation to apartment 808, if we look at this map right here, can you tell us where it is in relation to 808? So 408, is this 408?
Yes.
Okay. And where would I go for 808?
Just go up to the right on these block of apartments right here,
Along this line here?
and then the 808 is right there, yes. Mhm.
And who did you live with at the time?
I rented the apartment, and my 3 children lived with me.
Okay. And is Mariah Flores Bitta one of your daughters?
Mariah Flores Bata is my oldest daughter.
Okay. And then you had 2 younger daughters with you as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you need their names?
No.
Okay.
Did you know Michelle Martens and Victoria Martens?
I knew Victoria Martens more so than Michelle. Michelle was more so of passerby, say hi, mingle with the neighborhood.
Just kind of a typical neighbor relationship, just
Yes.
see each other in passing?
Hmm.
And you said you knew Victoria a little better than that. How did you know Victoria better?
She used to live at Michelle and Victoria and Matthew used to live in a catty corner apartment downstairs from us before they got the 3-bedroom over at 808. So Victoria was always outside with her little brother or just outside with the neighborhood kids. Very talkative, very approachable. She wanted to tell you anything that she could at any time. Very friendly. But Victoria would come over. I had surgery in April of 2016, and she would come over and help me want to walk the dogs because I couldn't come downstairs because I had hip surgery. So she would walk the dogs for me. She would ask if she can help. Plenty of times she would see me struggling going upstairs, offer to help me from groceries to just walking next to me going upstairs. So she was my little friend.
How many dogs did you have
At that time I had 2.
Did she like the dogs?
Yes, they were little lap dogs, so they were very friendly.
Did you know Michelle's new boyfriend in August of 2016? Did you see him in the apartments?
No, that was the first day I had ever even known that she had a boyfriend. I wasn't very involved with most of the neighbors, I mean, other than saying hi, but I had never knew Michelle enough to be involved in her life that way. My daughter just had told me that Michelle had a new boyfriend, which was interesting just because we never talked about Michelle on a daily basis. So it was weird that my daughter had mentioned that evening.
Okay, and when you say that evening, is that the evening before the police arrived?
Yeah, I think that was a Tuesday. I'm not quite sure what the days were.
August 23rd, does that sound right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes, I'm sorry.
So on August 23rd, did you go to work that day?
Is that Tuesday?
Tuesday?
Yes.
And what time did you get back home?
I probably got home between 4:30 and 5. I don't think I'd be there any later than 5:30. Around the 5 o'clock hour, I would say.
And when you got home, was your daughter already home?
Yeah, she was upstairs.
Okay. And did you see anyone when you got there?
We always had neighbors outside, so it wasn't anything abnormal or didn't strike me as odd. I had sat in my car for a little while, and nothing pulled my attention to be alarmed in any manner.
Okay. And where did you typically park?
I would either park along the apartment on the corner. There's like a median, no, to the left. I'm sorry, to the right, by my apartment. Keep going.
This way?
No,
Oh,
all the way to the right.
Park spot over here?
Yes. So I'd usually park as close to this corner as I could because I still wasn't healed as good as I would have wanted to be. But I parked really close to this apartment side, but usually along the south parking lot
So along these
section.
spaces here?
Hmm.
Okay. And the entrance to the apartments, is that here?
Yes.
Is that the entrance you would come in?
Yes.
Okay, so you would come into the apartments and then park.
Correct.
And that day, nothing caught your attention over in this area?
No, I believe my car was on this side, so I was facing like the 400 block apartments.
Okay. And what about that night? Did you come out of your apartment that night?
I do believe that I did because I did walk my dogs often. So if I would have walked them, I would have went straight down from my apartment to that corner section here in the parking lot, and I would have went down along the south of the 800 block, so towards like Irving, so I would see the cars there. So I never really walked along the front of the apartments. I usually went back to the back side.
Okay. And was there anything that caught your attention that night?
No.
What about the next morning? Tell us about the next morning. What happened? What was the first thing you remember happening the next morning?
So I woke up to, I was half asleep when all of this happened. So I woke up to knocking, but I also recall voices and talking kind of before I got to the door. But I was a little caught off guard because my door was being knocked on, or at least it sounded like my door was being knocked on. But by the time I got up, like I said, because I was recovering from surgery, I couldn't get to my door fast enough. When I looked through the peephole, I didn't see anybody, so I opened my door because it's a safe environment, safe neighborhood. I opened my door, and that's when I had seen who I know now as Fabian at the bottom of the stairs, kind of coming around. I didn't see his face. All I saw was his back. And then that's when he went in or towards the bottom apartment underneath me.
Okay, so where were you at that time? Were you at your doorway?
I was at the balcony looking down towards the staircase.
And was he still on the stairs?
He was coming around from the stairs, from either coming from my apartment, but he was on that lower part because usually whenever I'm in my apartment, you can't hear things very well, like from downstairs or next door or anything.
So the knocking that I was awoken from had to have been at my door because it was very loud. But I never saw him on the upper part of by my door. I only saw him coming around on the bottom and then knocking on the downstairs door.
So you saw him knock on the door? Apartment 407?
Yes.
And is that the Scott's apartment?
Yes, Rachel and Sullivan.
Did you see them answer the door?
I saw the door open, and at that time, Michelle had come around the corner from the gravel section. Excuse me. Sorry, this is really hard for me. She came around the corner, and I was still hovering above the staircase because I knew something wasn't right. Nothing ever happens at that time of the morning. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning. Michelle came around the corner, and she had blood all on her face, and her shirt looked ripped. She didn't look normal. She said, she said she killed my daughter. And at that point, I'm in mom mode already, but my daughter Mariah was inside of the apartment at the doorway. I repeated to Mariah, she said she killed Victoria, or she said she killed my daughter. I don't know if I used Victoria's name or just my daughter in general. And Mariah said, you need to call the cops. So I called 911. I was explaining to the cops what I had seen, how I had woken up, and they said they had another call that was coming in from downstairs, so I guess that's at the point when the lower apartment was already calling 911. She stayed on the phone, or the dispatcher stayed on the phone with me for a little while, and I think when we heard the cops, the sirens, the 911 dispatcher disconnected at that point.
Well, let's back up. So,
Okay, I'm really nervous. I'm so sorry.
no, it's okay. It's okay. Take your time. So we'll just back up for a couple minutes. So you saw Fabian Gonzales knock on the door to 407. You saw Michelle come up, and you heard her say, she said she killed my daughter. Who was she talking to when she said that?
At that point, I had no idea because I didn't know any of them other than Michelle in the relation to I knew her.
When she walked out, who was she speaking to that she said that to?
Either to Fabian or to the people downstairs. I didn't know who she was directly speaking with.
Okay. And what was Fabian's response?
He said, no, babe, come on, come on over here, and he kind of escorted them inside of the apartment. And then they shut the door, so I thought, oh, well, Michelle must know them because I had never met them. They were just there less than a week. They had just moved in, so I'd never met the downstairs neighbors before. So I thought, well, maybe they kind of knew each other from before, so they went inside. But in that time frame, the door opened again, and Michelle was sitting on a chair downstairs in the approximate of the front door area patio. And she kept asking for her phone. I know this is before the cops even got to our door. I don't know if they were assessing the area or where the cops were at in relation to this, because I think I was a little tunnel visioned in that direction. And I kind of went a quarter way down the first portion of the stairs, and I hung myself over because I was asking Michelle, I said, where are your children? And I kept begging her, please, where are your kids? I kept asking her 5 times. And she wouldn't say anything. She didn't have any reaction. She kind of looked like she looked right through me. I almost went downstairs to go to Michelle's apartment, but my daughter stopped me because I was so worried about the kids. Because Michelle had only mentioned Victoria that passing by to the other apartment. So in my mind, I thought, well, where's Matthew? So at that time when I was about to go to down from my apartment up to Michelle's because that was the only thing that I can think of to do. But the cops were already there. My daughter said, no, Mom, the cops are here or they're going to be here. And so she stopped me from doing that. And then everything kind of transpired from there.
Okay. So there were a few things there I want to go back to. So you said the door that opened up again and you saw Michelle. What was Michelle doing with it? Did she have anything in her hands?
Yes. She was sitting in like a folding chair, like one of those picnic table type of chairs, and she had like a washcloth or some type of material. I want to say it was a washcloth because she kept folding it on her leg. She would wipe herself, you know, every so often, but she kept folding the towel on her leg. And I'm going to speak as a mother. If it was my children, I would not have left the apartment. And I wouldn't have been sitting there as still as she was and as absent as she was. So it really was very strange to me that she wasn't asking any questions, or she asked about her phone more so than anything else. And that was very hard to kind of watch. And then, you know, being distracted with the cops at the other side of the apartment. And then when the cops...
Let me stop
Okay.
for a second. Okay, so you said that she had a towel, like a dish towel, and you gestured along your arms when you said she was wiping?
Yeah, she kept like wiping, or to me that's what she was doing. And I had connected it because she had blood on her face, that she was wiping blood off of her, because I don't see that that's a regular something that you would do if you didn't have blood on you.
Okay. Did it appear that the blood was fresh, or was she actively bleeding, or did it appear to be dry?
There was just so much. It to me, it didn't dawn on me what the blood was dry or wet. It just was blood.
Okay. Now, when you asked her, Michelle, where are your children? What was Fabian's reaction?
I was stuck on looking. I can't get Michelle's eyes out of my head. That was the only thing I was looking at.
Was she looking at you?
Yes.
Okay, but almost like through you is what you said.
Yes.
Okay. Did she say anything to you?
No. She never directed any kind of acknowledgement to the questions that I was asking. I was begging her to tell me it wasn't a social just, hey, how are your kids? I was yelling across from my stairwell to that bottom apartment, asking her to tell me where the kids were.
And backing up a little bit, you said when they first got to apartment 407 and Michelle came up and she said she killed my daughter. You said Fabian at that time said, no, babe, and ushered her in and closed the door?
Yeah.
How did he seem to you? Did he seem upset? Did he seem excited? Did he seem calm? How was he?
I was completely in shock at that moment. Well, I shouldn't say in shock, but I was confused because I was mainly focusing on Michelle, and at that point I never met him, so I didn't know where he came from. I didn't know who he was. I didn't understand the situation. All I knew was Michelle. And like I said, I didn't know if he was from the bottom apartment because I had not met the people from down there yet. So to me, there was no relation to what was happening in my mind.
And when you first saw the defendant going down the stairs after knocking on your door, what was he wearing?
He was wearing a pair of like basketball shorts, and because this is what I thought of like at that time, I wouldn't have been able to recognize his face because I never saw his face clear enough. I could have only identified him by his tattoos that I had seen on his back.
What tattoo did you see? Was it a large tattoo on his back?
Yes, it's a very large, like on the broad of your shoulders type of. In New Mexico, we have like last names or representation of some sort of wording. It was an upper tattoo and a lower tattoo. I don't know if it was Jesus in the center, if there was a cross or something that was in the center of it. I just know it was the upper, the bottom, and then the center. Sorry.
you hear them say anything else while that door was open, aside from Michelle asking about the phones? Did you hear anything else?
Yeah, well, it was in relation to the phones again. She said, "Where's my phone?" And Fabian said, "Babe, remember she took our phones."
And how long do you think it was before the police arrived from the time he knocked on the door to apartment 407?
It seemed like an eternity, but it was probably within 5 to 7 minutes from the time I called, I would say.
Did you see Jessica Kelly that morning?
I saw a silhouette of her, yes.
Okay, what happened?
So we were all kind of gazed at that general area of the 808 complex portion, and Jessica came around the north side of Michelle's apartment, kind of where there's like a grass area that you can only kind of go one direction. So she came from behind the apartment, around, and then down in the grass. And then Fabian said, "That's her, she did it," or something in that relation to acknowledging her.
That's her, and she did it. Did he say what the it was?
No, I just knew that it was in relation to Victoria because that was the only thing I knew of at that point.
And what happened next?
They arrested her. The fire detectors were going off in the apartment. There was just a lot of commotion and a lot of things
When did you first hear the smoke detector?
Right when the cops got there, they were asking her to open the door, or banging on the door. And then once the door was knocked open, you can hear the fire detectors going off in relation to lots of beeping sounds and the cops yelling and trying to get her to the car. And it just kind of all happened really quickly.
Okay. Your Honor, may I have a moment?
You may.
Your Honor, I think the batteries are dead, so I'll just speak into here.
Okay.
Ms. Benavides, you said that Michelle Martens had said she killed my daughter when she first got to the apartment. After that, did you hear any mention of Victoria from either Michelle Martens or Fabian Gonzales while you were standing outside?
No.
Ask the witness, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Will you direct?
Hello, Ms. Benavides. Mariah is your daughter?
Mariah? Yes.
Your oldest daughter?
My oldest.
Now, there were lots of neighbors outside that evening, like there always are in the summer, right?
Yes.
And did you ever hear loud parties at Michelle's, anything unusual like that?
Never.
And kids are playing outside. It's a safe neighborhood, isn't it?
Yes.
And so if a parent left her child outside, the other parents would keep an eye on them?
I wouldn't know that. My children were older than the neighborhood children, but I still wouldn't let my kids outside by themselves, even if they were teenagers.
Okay. But there were other parents and other children playing and swimming or on their scooters and other things outside. That was a typical night in Arroyo Villa, wasn't it?
Yes, and it seemed so that the area that we lived in was more so filled with children because the pool was right across the way from us. And it seemed like our side of the apartment complex was more popular. The neighbors were outside, they would barbecue or, just have little get-togethers, sit outside on the porch and watch the kids. I didn't participate in much of that other than, saying hi and chit-chatting for a second, but I didn't socialize often.
All right. And even though your kids were a little older, if you saw another child in trouble or something, you would respond if somebody needed help or was hurt themselves, skinned their knee or anything, you might come and help as well, right?
Absolutely.
Now, you saw, did you see Fabian pull up with Michelle?
I never witnessed that.
Okay. So let's fast forward to when somebody's pounding on your door the next morning. It was a loud pound, would you agree?
Yes, because it woke me up and it stirred up my dogs from the barking.
And because you were still recuperating, it took you a little while to get to the front door.
For as little as the apartment was, it did take me a little bit of time to get there because, waking up and not using those muscles for a little while, you kind of got to take it slow.
And by the time you got there, all you could see was Fabian's back. He was already walking down the steps to another door.
Correct.
And even though, and maybe you hadn't seen him, but you opened the door even though your light was out because it's a safe neighborhood. And you opened the door to see who's pounding, right?
Yes.
And that's when you see his back.
Yes.
Now he went straight to the new neighbors that were underneath you.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
Do you know their names or?
I do now. I didn't know at the time, but it is Rachel and Sullivan. I don't recall their last names.
Could it be Scott?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
All right. And they had just moved in shortly before all of this happened. Is that right?
Correct. I would say not even a week.
Not even a week.
Probably that weekend before that Tuesday, Wednesday time frame would be the time that I would have noticed that they were there, but I still hadn't met them.
Okay. And he pounded on their door like he had pounded on yours.
Yes.
Do you remember what he was saying or yelling when he was pounding on the door?
I don't recall him yelling anything at that point. It was just, he knocked on the door, they let him in and shut the door, so that's why I thought that it was just like the new neighbors, maybe late night drinking. I didn't know because I'd never met him, so there was nothing to worry about on my side.
Okay. By the way, are there a number of trash dumpsters in this complex? It's just the one right between the two of you. Were there other dumpsters in Arroyo Villa?
There were, but I don't recall where their positioning is other than when I couldn't live in my apartment anymore. I had to be relocated to another section, and there was another dumpster down on the west side of the apartment complex towards the other entrance.
Okay, so if we look here, it looks like Exhibit 253.1. You originally, when all this happened, you were in this building?
Yes.
And then how many buildings to the left were you when you moved?
So if you go to the left of the page, and there's the entrance here on the very left side of the page.
This entrance?
Yes.
Okay.
Trying to think. When you make the first left, I was in this unit here on the
Is
top,
it
yes.
This unit?
Yes, and I was in the bottom apartment here. I don't recall the number because I didn't live there for very long. I tried to get out of my lease for 408 because of the situation, and her apartment mirrored my apartment, so all I could do is relive that night and what I thought could possibly have occurred. And it was very traumatizing, and they relocated me to the other apartment, but never let me out of my lease.
Okay, so you were still stuck with your lease, but at least you could move a few buildings to the west.
Yes.
Now, where was the dumpster, this other dumpster that you knew about after you had relocated?
So if you go back to that apartment, to the right a little bit.
So would it be between these two buildings?
No, it would have been in this direct parking lot here, within the first 6 parking. There's like a little median there on the south part of that parking lot. Yes, a little bit south. It was like right in that area, right across from, in front of those other apartments.
Okay. Now,
I'm sorry, it was either there or a little bit to the right. I can't tell on this map.
but it's generally in this area as opposed to over here.
Yeah, it's in that parking lot area.
Now, the next thing you remember after Fabian went into the Scott's residence, did you see Michelle next, and not the other woman, but you saw Michelle was the next thing that you saw?
When you say other woman?
Well, Jessica, did you later see Jessica, I guess? Did you see her? Or the silhouette of her?
You have to ask the question again, please.
Okay. What happened next after Fabian went into the Scott's residence?
Well, that's when Michelle came around the gravel section of that lower apartment. There's not a walkway there. I just saw Michelle, and she said what she said, and then he ushered her inside. They closed the door.
Okay. So she's walking towards the Scotts, and it's not gravel. Is it grass or?
No, it's a gravel area. There's no walkway.
Okay, it's gravel but not a walkway.
Correct.
And when you say she said what she said, what you remember her saying is she said she killed my daughter.
Correct.
And what kind of affect, how would you describe her voice or her demeanor when she's saying that?
It wasn't frantic or anything. She just said it, so I thought that they were all drinking or, altered in some state. I couldn't tell because the situation seemed a little elevated, but it wasn't in a frantic way that she couldn't find her daughter or where is her daughter, or just as a matter of fact, she said she killed my daughter.
Was it loud or soft or fast or slow?
It was just like if we were having a conversation. Her voice was a little elevated. I could hear her from upstairs on my balcony, so it wasn't she wasn't yelling.
Was it like a flat affect where it wasn't excited and it wasn't depressed?
It was more so of like, when she was saying that to Fabian, it was like she was telling him, she says she killed my daughter, type of.
And he said, no, babe.
Yeah, he said, come on in, or come over here. I don't know how he had told her, but he just said, no, babe, come in here. And that's when they went in the apartment.
Okay. Now, you were in shock from all of this, weren't you?
Absolutely, and for weeks after.
From what you could see, was Michelle in shock as well?
I think I cared more about the situation than what I felt the response was in her direct comment of her daughter.
Now, you heard, at some point you see the silhouette of who we now know as Jessica Kelly. Is that right?
Yes, it was over towards Michelle's apartment.
And do you know if she came down the stairs or how she got outside?
So if you look at her apartment complex on, where are we? So here at 808, okay, so let me start off from where I live.
Let's see if this will help you a little bit. Okay.
It's very blurry, but that's okay. So if I live here on the 408 at the bottom, of this bottom apartment,
This would be there.
I don't see where you're pointing.
Okay. Can't see.
Okay, yes, so if I'm in my apartment or in the general patio of my apartment, you can't see this eastern part of the apartment complex because that faces like southern golf course area. But if you go towards the back of Michelle's apartment, her apartment has like a path of grass with a railing around it. So if Jessica had went north in that section of grass, the only way she could go would be to make a left and follow the apartment grass down towards where the staircase would be, where Michelle's apartment would lead up.
All right, so did you actually see her go counterclockwise or clockwise?
No,
or do you know which way she went?
She came from that north side of Michelle's apartment in the counterclockwise way. That's the only way that I had seen her, was just coming straight from that grass area. If she would have went right, she would have been in a separate part of the apartment complex that nobody would have seen.
All right, so she was coming down from the northwest corner. She was headed toward your building.
Not in relativity to the closeness, no, she was just walking that direction.
Okay.
Like if
So
she
she
stopped.
never got that close.
No.
All right. And you could hear Fabian say, "That's her, she did it."
Yeah.
Now, you said that was in relation to Victoria, but couldn't it have been in relation to Michelle and what had happened to her?
Yeah, I just heard what he said. I didn't regard it to Michelle. I wasn't concerned about Michelle. I was concerned about the kids. So to me, that's all I could think of is that it was Victoria, excuse me.
But you don't really know what was in his mind. All you know is he said, that's her. Correct?
Correct.
Now, are you familiar that with Matthew's dad having custody on some days? Did you know anything about that?
I did not know the parenting situation whatsoever. I just knew Michelle was Victoria and Matthew's mother and didn't know fathers, if they had the same father or not. So, like I said, I wasn't socially tied into them.
Okay. Now, do you remember telling the police that when you asked Michelle, where are your kids, she said she didn't know?
She never said that at all. She
So
never
just
responded.
Never answered you?
No. If she did, I didn't hear her, but if I could hear what they were talking about, and I wasn't looking at them at the beginning of the conversation, and when I directed that question to her, I was looking right at her, and I did not hear a response.
Did you hear Fabian tell her, "I called the cops"?
No.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Any redirect?
Benavides, I'm not sure if I heard one of your answers. So Mr. Ahrens asked you if Michelle was in shock. Did I hear you say that it appeared you cared more about the situation than she did?
Yes. Otherwise, I wouldn't have tried to go over to the apartment that morning. I literally was about to run downstairs when my daughter grabbed my arm and said no.
Did it appear that either Michelle or Fabian tried to get to the apartment?
Once they were downstairs at that bottom apartment, they stayed there. Michelle never left the area, or, like I always say, if something ever happened to my children, like, you need to put me in a mental institution because I would not be able to handle anything. And that's about the situation where I was at. With the situation that Michelle and Victoria, I needed to be hospitalized because I was very traumatized. And even up until most recent years, I have gone to counseling every single week for this situation because of what I saw.
Right. I understand. Well, thank you, ma'am. No further questions.
May this witness be excused?
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you. You may step down. Remember to remove your microphone. Thank you. Does anyone on the jury need a break? All right, let's take a 10-minute break. All rise to the jury. solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Have a seat. And then have my bailiff go ahead and put a microphone on you.
Okay.
And if you scoot a little closer to the other one as well, and state your name, please.
Christina Torres.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Good.
How are you feeling?
Okay.
You a little nervous?
Yes.
Ms. Torres, I'm just going to ask you some just general get-to-know-you questions right now. Where do you live now? What city?
Here in Albuquerque.
And what do you do?
I stay home and watch my kids right now.
Back in August of 2016, did you live at the Arroyo Villas Apartments?
I did.
Do you remember your apartment number?
806.
And who lived in the apartment with you?
My husband and my 2 kids.
And who's your husband?
Victor Rojas.
Back in August of 2016, did your sister visit you?
Yes.
What's your sister's name?
Monica Ramirez.
How many nights did she stay with you?
She just stayed that one night.
And who was with her?
Her 2 kids.
How long did you live at the Arroyo Villas?
I think about 3 years.
During the time you lived there, did you know who Michelle Martens was?
I did.
How did you know her?
She was my next door neighbor.
And you said you lived in 806?
Yes.
Let me show you what's been admitted as State Exhibit 4. Does that look familiar?
Yes.
Okay. And which apartment was yours?
The one that shares the landing, so that,
Right here?
yes.
Did you know Ms. Martens very well?
Not very well. Just talk to her once in a while. She invited me to her son's birthday once. Her and her mom invited me to her son's birthday, and we ended up on that landing a couple of times watching her kids play outside. So she was watching her kids, and we stood there and talked. I think she gave me a chicken dinner one time, and so I bought pizza one time because I'm a horrible cook, and I let her have pizza. So, yeah.
Just neighborly
Yeah.
encounters? You didn't hang out with Michelle as friends, except for just around the complex?
Yeah, just
Okay.
around the complex, yeah.
Did you know Victoria Martens?
Yes.
How did you know her?
She played with my kids. They had a water balloon, one time a water balloon fight. We would see them around the complex. I even saw her at the park above that 4th of July. We were there, coincidence, and she came up to me and she was really happy because we just happened to be there at the same time. But most of the time it's because they were outside and they played outside together. Michelle's kids and my kids played outside a couple of times, or at the pool.
Were your kids around the same ages as Victoria and her brother?
Maybe her brother. She was much older. My son was only 4 at the time, and she was 9 or 10. So, but I think the smaller one was more his age. But she still played with them. So.
Going back to talking about your apartment being next door to Michelle's, can you describe which wall of your apartment shared a wall with her?
My living room was attached to her master bedroom, and my kitchen was attached to her master bathroom. So the front windows in the front, that is my bathroom window, and no, that is her bathroom window and my kitchen window.
So that's her bathroom window?
Yes, that's her
And
bathroom.
that's your kitchen
That's
window?
my kitchen window.
Let me see if I can find our handy exhibit here. Do you know the number for the apartment diagram? Sorry, I meant to pull this ahead of time and missed it, so let me get that out. diagram of Michelle's apartment, and the front door we've established is here. So you said that her bathroom window,
That's the front, yes.
I'm going to show you the floor and this one's, if I can. So this window right here is that,
Yes,
and then this is your,
my kitchen window.
now going back along this wall, do other parts of your house besides your kitchen
Yes.
meet up with here?
So her master bedroom lines up with my living room.
So your kitchen is here and
Yes.
your living room is here?
Yes.
Do you know who Michelle lived with in this apartment?
With her 2 kids.
Did you see anyone else living there?
Just a few days before everything happened, I saw one time I saw who I now know is Fabian with Victoria walking towards her car, which was parked in front of the building office. I don't know why it was parked over there. And I saw them walking towards the car. So that's the only time I saw an extra person. And then when everything happened, that's when I saw Jessica for the first time. But before that, I didn't see anybody there. I started hearing more noise.
Okay. Let me back up just a little bit to seeing the defendant walking with Victoria. Was Michelle with them?
Yes, but I believe she was more to the side. Maybe she was checking her mail. I specifically remember him walking towards the car with Victoria. I went through my transcripts from the first interview, and I did mention Michelle, but it just really stayed in my memory that he was walking with Victoria towards the car. So I think maybe Michelle was checking the mail or something.
In the week or so before Victoria died, tell us about what you noticed, any changes you noticed in Michelle's apartment.
Well, the biggest change is the noise, because you can't really see. So over my kitchen window, you would have to get on my countertop to look at that small window that's in the front. So you can't really see onto that landing. So you couldn't check to see who's coming, but you can definitely feel somebody coming up the stairs, especially if it's more than one person. The stairs are made out of steel, and so they vibrate. So if there's multiple people coming in and out, you can feel it throughout the day. So I just noticed that within, I want to say days, I don't know if it was weeks, I'm always concentrated on my kids, I noticed that there was a lot more traffic in and out of the apartment.
What about did any other apartment share these stairs besides the 2 of yours?
No, it's just hers and mine.
And you said you said the noise was different and you could feel people coming up the stairs. Anything else about that noise and where it was coming from aside from the stairs?
Well, it seemed to have more people in the house, but again, I share my living room, maybe the door open more than usual, because I mean, it was pretty quiet. Michelle would just take her kids in the morning to school, and she would go to work. So the apartment was quiet most of the day. I stayed home with my kids. I had a baby at the time, so I was home all day, and it was always quiet when she lived there by herself with her kids. And so it was just more people coming in and out of the apartment than usual. It was just in the middle of the day instead of like the usual morning routine and the afternoon routine that she had with her kids.
Talk to me about this wall a little bit more. Is this a wall that you can hear a lot of noise through? Like, how loud does it need to get before you're hearing things in the apartment next door?
It has to get pretty loud because, I mean, she'd have to be in her master bedroom making a lot of noise for me to be able to hear it, because there's still a whole room and then her living room. So it would have to be pretty noisy for me to hear anything.
And when you say a whole room and then her living room, are you talking about if noises was coming from this room?
If it was coming from the living room or any of these extra rooms, I think I wouldn't be able to hear it. It would have to be in her bedroom.
During the summer, did you keep windows open here and there?
Yes.
Are you able to hear a little bit more when your windows are open?
Yes, especially if they are hanging out in the balcony. If they step out of the apartment, I usually, Yes, if they get out into the balcony, days before I could hear like my neighbors, my downstairs neighbors, they were speaking. So if you come outside and my window or my balcony is open, you can hear people outside.
Do you remember seeing Victoria on her birthday?
Yes,
And was that August 23rd, 2016?
yes.
How many times that day did you see her?
I saw her, it would be 3.
So let's talk about the first time that you saw her that day. Tell us how you saw her and where.
I saw her coming from the other apartments that were to the left of my apartment.
Let me show you 253.1. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So,
Okay.
building 8 is this one.
hmm
So when you say the other apartments, which ones are you talking about?
I'm talking about this corner, right there.
Right in
Yeah,
this area?
this area here, yeah.
Okay, continue on. So you see her walking, she's walking towards her apartment?
Yeah, she's walking towards her apartment. We're leaving, so she's carrying a kitten, and it was weird because they didn't have pets. So I just smiled at her like, what's going on? But she was really happy because she had a cat. So she just smiled back, and that was the time I saw her before we went to the grocery store.
Do you remember about what time that was?
I don't remember exactly. I know that it was pretty bright out, and it must have been later because my husband did work that day, and he came home and he had to watch the kids so he could go to the grocery store because we had 4 kids in the house. So.
Hold on 1 second. Would looking at a transcript from your pretrial interview help refresh your memory about that time?
Hmm?
And you've given more than one pretrial interview in this case, is that right?
Yes. At the time, I think I said it was like 3 or 4 in the afternoon was my guess, but
So I'm just going to show you both. So
Okay.
you have a pretrial interview from April 19th of 2017 and one from June 1st of 2020. And let me show you page 6 of that older one and page 6 of the newer one and see, and just go ahead and read these and let me know if these help refresh your memory. So I think starting somewhere here and then read this one as well and see if that helps refresh your memory about the time of day.
okay. So I have my time frame from 2 to 4. Like if you put both of them together, I have 2 to 3 or 3 to 4. So that was my initial 3 to 4 time. Yeah, that I was thinking.
So you said putting the whole time frame together. So when you first saw her, you said that you went to the store.
Yes,
So about what time do you think you saw her before you left?
I believe it was around 3 or 4.
And what time do you think you got home from the store?
I don't know. I got a flat tire at the store, so it took us forever to come home. It could have been 6.
Would looking at your pretrial interview help refresh your memory?
Yes.
I'm showing you page 6.
Oh. Okay.
Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. So let's start just back. So you had to go to the store. So you see Victoria, you go to the store. About what time do you think you get home?
So I believe my time was off. I left earlier, and I think I got back by 3 or 4.
When you got home and you were stuck at the store who went to the store with you?
Just Monica and me.
Your sister?
Yes.
You guys get stuck there with a tire
Yes.
issue. When you get home from the store around 3:30 or 4 mid-afternoon, did you see Victoria a second time?
I did.
Where was she the second time?
We were making our way up the stairs, and I saw her at the top of the stairs. She was coming out of her apartment. Jessica was right behind her, and we stopped at the top of the stairs to talk to her because she stopped to invite me to her birthday party the next day.
Had you ever seen, you said Jessica, did you know who that was?
No.
Had you ever seen her before?
No.
And you said Victoria stopped you, and what did she do?
She told me if I would like to come to her birthday party the next day. But I just thought it was funny that she was inviting, because last time her mom and her grandma invited me, so it was funny that it was just her. So I said, wouldn't you like to ask your mom first? And then I looked at Jessica smiling to see, but she didn't react. She didn't say anything to me.
Jessica didn't say anything to you?
Mm-hmm.
How was Jessica acting?
She was just kind of mean looking. She just stood there. She didn't say anything. She didn't introduce herself. She didn't say hello. She didn't smile when I smiled at her. She was just very rude, just standing behind her. She didn't say she was an adult. I would expect some kind of interaction from her, but I got nothing.
And what did you do next?
I told her that all I remember is I told her that I didn't know if I was going to make it, but if I could give her a hug. And so I gave her a hug.
Was there an exchange between Victoria and Jessica and your sister that you did not see? Did they have a conversation where you were maybe inside or not there?
Most likely, because I didn't, because I probably went inside. We were still bringing in groceries, so she may have come back out to get more groceries, because I think that's all I remember happening. And then they left. I don't know which way they went. I just went inside with the groceries.
Did Monica make a comment to you maybe about the way Victoria looked?
Yeah, later on she kept telling me that her eyes sparkle, and I thought she meant her eyes, like her eyes. And then I realized later she was talking about she was wearing eyeshadow. So when she hugged me, I guess she closed her eyes and she was wearing eyeshadow, so that's what she meant by her eyes sparkled, because she had eyeshadow on.
So how long do you think this encounter that you've described at the top of the stairs took, where Victoria and Jessica were up on this balcony?
It wasn't very long. It was a very short conversation. I still had all the groceries and we had to get inside, so I don't think it was very long.
What did you guys do next?
Well, we went inside and we just, I guess because the kids wanted to go out, we decided to take them out to the park.
And who all is with you at that point?
So at that point, Victor's home, we have the 4 kids, so we decided to take both cars because all the kids were in car seats, so we had to take both cars to go to the park. So Victor, Monica, and the 4 kids and myself went to the park.
Still looking at 4 here. Let me zoom out. Do you recognize some cars in the parking lot in Exhibit 4?
Yes, my
Which cars?
husband's truck.
Is that this
Yes,
one?
yes. And my car is right next to it, the Nissan Altima.
Altima?
Yes,
Do you recognize this gold car?
yes.
Whose car is that?
That was Michelle's car?
When you left to go to the park, so these are the 2 cars that you took, the truck and the Altima?
Yes.
When you left to go to the park, did you see anything unusual then?
No.
Do you remember when you got back from the park that evening?
Yes.
What time did you get back from the park?
So I was on the phone with my mom, so I know that it was around 8:40. I think the initial time was 8:48 that I gave to the police officer, so I'm saying around 8:40, 8:50.
So which car were you in?
The Altima, right where it's parked.
And who's with you?
Monica is in my passenger side,
And some kids?
and we have 2 kids, I'm guessing, in the back, and my husband's in the truck with the other 2 kids.
So you pull in around, you said 8:40, and were you already on the phone with your mom?
Yes, it was.
Was Victor's truck already here when you got
Yes,
there?
we all pulled up pretty much. I believe we might have pulled up at the same time. So yeah, we were all just parked there at the same time.
Did you see Michelle at
Yes.
that point? Where was she?
Well, she was in the car. Her door was open. I think she had a leg or an arm out.
Which side of the car?
She was on the passenger side of the car. And then there was Fabian on the other side. So when I pulled up, I want to say I may have pulled up before my husband because I thought his door was sort of open, or maybe his window was open, because I could see that there was a male there too, so that's why.
And the male is in the driver's seat of Michelle's
Yeah.
car? And what are they doing?
They're singing. They were singing along to music. They had really loud music, and they were just hanging out in the car.
What did you notice about them?
I didn't notice until I came around and I saw Michelle. And so I looked for her to say hi, and she said hi to me. But she looked like I just thought maybe they were just drinking and having a good time. She was wearing eyeliner. And like after a long day of eyeliner, it kind of smudges a little. So that's, it was a little different because I never seen her like that. She wasn't like, I never really saw her partying or doing anything else like that. So it was different.
Did they seem intoxicated to you?
Maybe like they had been drinking.
Was that unusual for Michelle?
Yes.
What happened after you just see them in the car singing? What happened next?
Oh, well, this is when we got out of the car. But before that, when we pulled up and we were still sitting in the car, my sister, my husband, and I were all kind of just wondering what was going on because Jessica came out of the apartment holding who I know now is Victoria, and she was wrapped in a blanket, and she came down to pretty much the little landing and then kind of stopped. Yes.
When you say the little landing?
Yeah, right there. And then kind of turned around and went back. She said something, but I think my sister and my husband heard it better. I was on the phone with my mom, so I was just more worried about the child she was carrying because she seemed to almost drop her, like she was having a hard time carrying her.
Do you remember did you know if that was Victoria at the time?
I did not know that was Victoria at the time.
Do you remember, did you see any clothing or anything on Victoria?
All I saw was hair and her feet, but her hair looked different, and I remember thinking it wasn't her because she usually had straight hair, and it just looked a little curlier, I guess maybe because it was the back of her hair, kind of like when you take a shower and it's, it's a little scrunchier. So I just thought it was maybe Jessica's kid and she was going home, like she was a relative and she was just going home for the night, but she almost dropped her. It was like she was struggling a lot. So, but I just thought, oh, well, her kid fell asleep. She's just going home now.
Was her face covered?
She had her in, so we couldn't see her face.
When you say in and you're gesturing, you're showing like
Her,
cradling,
yes.
an arm under maybe back or neck and one underneath.
Yeah, I don't know how she had her exactly, but all I could see was the head of hair and her feet. But she did wrap her in a blanket. It was a blanket she was wrapped in. I want to say it was black. It was a black blanket, so I really couldn't see any clothing or her face or anything like that.
And when you say she held her in and you're gesturing, you're sort of showing us that Victoria's chest is kind of to Jessica's chest? Sort
Yes, that they're
she's not
chest to
laying
chest.
flat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you see Victoria move at all?
No.
And when you said you think that Jessica, we now know Jessica, said something, who was she saying something to?
To the people in the car, because she was gesturing to the car right next to my husband's, which was Fabian and Michelle.
What did Fabian and Michelle do, if you know, when she said something?
I didn't see them. No.
Do you remember what Jessica's demeanor looked like to you when this was going on?
Well, besides struggling with the child, she seemed normal. I didn't pay too much attention to her face expressions or anything like that. I was more concerned about the child she was carrying because we were all concerned she was going to drop the child. So I wasn't really paying attention to her. But she seemed normal. And obviously she shouted out something to them. So she seemed normal to me. I didn't pay attention to her face very much.
You were still on the phone with your mom?
Yes.
Is that how you knew that 8:48 time?
Yes.
Is 8:48 the time that you saw Jessica carrying Victoria downstairs?
I don't know if like I ended the call and later checked the call, or if I looked at the phone at the moment. I might have just checked the phone later on to give the police an estimate of what time it was. So it may not have been that exact time, but I knew I was on the phone with her, and so that's the time that I saw the phone call was made.
So within a few minutes?
So within that time, yeah.
After that, where did you and Victor and your sister and the kids go?
So we all got out of the cars and started going. Like I said, I walked in front of the cars, and also it was strange to see people out and singing at that time. Our neighborhood's usually really quiet, so it was really weird to see them out there like that. So that's why I just wanted to make sure it was Michelle in there. So that's why I looked in, and I was like, hi. She was hi. So then I went up, and I think my husband was behind me. Either my sister was in front of me, and my husband was behind me. And we started going up the stairs, and Jessica came back out of the apartment, and she started coming down the stairs. And I did look at my transcript to refresh my memory, because I couldn't remember if there was so she did bump into me, and I remember this because I turned around to see what she was going to do, because my husband was carrying the baby in the car seat. So I was like, if you bump into him, I mean, he's got my baby. So I turned around, but she did move out of the way for him, which was nice.
Did you see Victoria at that time?
No, she didn't carry her anymore.
Did she say anything?
No.
What happened next?
Well, we just went in, and I guess it was just the same crazy routine inside to put the kids to sleep. And then...
Do you remember what time you put the kids down?
I believe initially I said around 10, because if we got home at 8:40, the kids were probably exhausted. We were trying to get them down as quickly as possible. It may have been between 10:30, 11, something like that, because I mean, to put down 4 kids, it must have been crazy. So yeah, 10, 11, something like that, yeah.
What about you guys? Did you stay up or did you go to bed?
No, I went to bed. I was exhausted, so I went to bed right away around the same time they did.
Tell us what happened the next morning, August 24th. How did you wake up?
So the one thing that woke me up was my bedroom window was open, and so I heard a male voice, and that's what woke me up. I guess I'm a light sleeper, but like I said, it's a very quiet neighborhood, so to hear people speaking outside, it does kind of it's different.
Let me just stop you really quickly. Which way does your bedroom face? So I'm going to put 4 back up. Is your bedroom window on the front side of this building or the other side?
It's on the back, yeah.
So it's on the same side of the building as Michelle's balcony?
Yes.
Okay, continue on. So you're waking up, what are you hearing?
I just heard he was talking to somebody. I didn't hear another voice. I just heard the male voice was different, because I know my downstairs neighbor lives alone, so he wouldn't tell it himself, and my downstairs other neighbor is a female, and her husband works nights. So it was weird to hear a man speaking outside. And so it woke me up, but I didn't think much of it, so I just kind of laid there. But then it felt like minutes later or seconds later, I think I woke up to the ending of the conversation, because it was very quickly. And then we started hearing shouting and thumping, and it felt like 2 people were fighting in Michelle's master bedroom. And so me and my husband left our room and went into the living room where my sister was. And she said it was going on since 1 in the morning, but we woke up around 3:40. And so that's when we started hearing, I know for sure I heard Michelle yelling, "Stop it." I think she yelled it a couple times. She was screaming. You would hear thumping and fighting, and people were struggling. but then it would get quiet, and I don't know if it was because they would go into the other room or because it would stop. I don't know, but it would get quiet. So we're kind of just like, what's going on? But it did sound like running, and at some point it kind of felt like somebody was dragging somebody. I don't know what was going on, but it was really loud in there. So, but it was minutes before we heard the door slam.
Okay, let me pause you right there. Let's back up just a little bit to when you said you were still in bed and woken up about 3:40 to the conversation.
Okay.
Where was that conversation coming from? You described your other neighbors.
It was coming from, it had to be from somebody's patio. It was coming from Michelle's patio because
This
it's
balcony?
outside. Yes.
Now, did you hear specifically what was being said
No.
on that balcony?
No.
Was that in
No.
Now, when you're hearing this on and off fighting, before you heard any doors, did you think about calling the police, you or Victor?
No, we were trying to figure out what was going on first because when it stopped, I thought it was just, if they had been drinking, maybe they were just arguing amongst themselves or fighting amongst themselves. And before we had a chance to figure out what was going on, it got quiet. So we're like, okay, maybe they're done. Maybe they just had a discussion and then they're done. So like I said, I don't know if they moved into the living room or to the other rooms because it did get quiet for a little bit. So we're like, oh, maybe it's done. And so that's why we were like, I think maybe they're just having a discussion.
And so by that time, are you and Victor in the living room with your sister?
Yes.
And tell us about hearing the door slam.
We heard the door slam, so we know automatically if the door slams, somebody's coming out of the apartment. So we all went to my children's window, which is at the front of the building. So,
This window?
yes,
So this is your little kitchen window in here?
Yes.
This is the kid's bedroom?
yes.
Before the door slammed, you've described this being woken up, on and off, quiet, loud scuffle. How long did that last before the door slammed?
It felt like a short amount of time, but I believe that it was maybe 20 to 30 minutes of like chaos going on in there.
On and off.
But it just felt really fast, yeah.
So now, we've heard the door slam and you're looking out this window.
Yes.
What did you see when you looked out?
We looked down and we saw Fabian coming from the left side over in front in that little grassy sidewalk area that's right in the front of the building. And Michelle was coming down the stairs and I believe she was crying and she seemed very freaked out. I believe he said something like, "Come on, babe," and then she was freaking out and she said, "I think she killed her."
Where were they when she said that?
So this area right here, this little gravel, like right next to it, there's a little grassy patch.
This patch or
On the other side.
over here?
Yes. So there's that grassy patch. It could have been on the sidewalk or the grassy patch, but just that area right below us. We could see them. They were right in front of us.
So you're right up here
Yes.
at this window.
Mhm.
And tell me again what you heard. You heard Michelle say,
I think she killed her.
and what did the defendant say?
I don't remember him saying. He said when he got there, he said, "Come on, babe." Like
Where was he taking her?
he was putting his hand out to get her, and he was coming from the left side, so I'm guessing they were going back to wherever he was going to take her. I don't know. Maybe they were going to go look for help. I don't know.
How was Michelle acting when she said that?
I believe she was crying, and she looked very scared. She looked very frantic, very I believe at some point I heard her say "fuck," but I don't remember if it was before, during, or into the sentence. I think she killed her. I think that when she was coming down the stairs, scared, she must have yelled "fuck," and then she was like, I think she killed her. She was really, really scared and freaking out. And
What about the defendant? How's he acting?
he didn't seem very frantic or scared. He was just like, "Come on, babe, let's go." So, yeah.
After that, what did you see?
After that, it was I think the smoke alarms went off.
Did you see where they went?
No, I didn't. They must have gone to the left, and then the smoke alarms went on, and we were like, "Oh my God, what's happening?" So I was more concerned that we had our kids in there. We didn't know it was burning. Nobody was really, and I mean, it was I think a couple of minutes before the police got there too. So because I remember saying like, "Why aren't they asking us to leave? Like, why aren't they?"
The alarms.
Yeah, because the alarms were going off and it smelled really funky. So I was like, why aren't they coming to ask us to leave? Is it dangerous outside? Can I leave with my kids? And then we had an officer at the door, banging on the door, and he already knew Jessica's name, and he was calling out her name and asking her to open the door. The door was locked, and he was banging on the door.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
You may.
You talked about your bedroom window being open that night.
Yes.
Were any other windows open in the apartment?
I believe my sister had opened the balcony door, maybe to get some fresh air inside, because I only have that window and the balcony door back there.
What about the kitchen or the kids?
Yeah, so to get an airflow, I believe I had the kids, so in the front we had the kids' window open, and I believe the kitchen window was open, but I don't remember for sure.
So this window right here?
Yes.
And what about the kitchen window?
Sometimes I would leave it open. I don't recall if I left it open that night.
Thank you, Your Honor. Pass the witness.
Cross?
Well, Ms. Torres. So the first time that you saw Fabian Gonzales, he and Michelle were walking toward the office building, is that right?
Yes.
And is that where you checked mail, or?
Yes, so I specifically remember him walking and Victoria was next to him. Michelle must have been checking the mail. Yeah, the mail's next to the building office.
Okay, so he was actually with Victoria, not Michelle?
Yes.
Okay. And you live on the same building as Victoria on the right side, and they're on the left side as you face your building.
We're on the right side, yes, correct.
Okay. And you say it's pretty quiet, but you can hear foot traffic if somebody's going up or down those steps or into Michelle's apartment or out. You can kind of feel sort of a rumble.
Yes, you can feel it.
Okay. Now, were they having music and parties, or was it just foot traffic during the day, which was new?
Foot traffic during the day.
Okay. And in the past, because Michelle worked, there wasn't any noise in the middle of the day.
Unless the grandparents came to get the kids or they brought the kids home early. But most of the time, if she was at work and they were at school, there was nobody left in the apartment.
Okay. Now, this last day, you saw Victoria carrying her little cat from the kid.
Correct, yes.
And when you came back, and I believe you said it was 6 p.m., you saw Victoria on the landing between your door and her door. Is that right?
Well, We go back and forth with the time because you never pay attention to time, so it may have been 3, 4 instead of 6.
Oh, that's right. Now, would you agree the kids don't get off school until 4, the little kids?
They do.
So if she went to school, it would have been after that, I guess.
It could have been 4.
All right. It's hard to remember 6
Yeah.
years ago.
You don't pay. You never pay attention during. I do now, but you didn't. I didn't before.
Right. Now, you have 4 kids that sometimes played with Victoria, don't you?
I only have 2 kids.
2 kids?
Yes.
I thought I heard, were there 2 other from?
My sister was visiting that night. She has 2 kids. I only have 2
Okay,
kids.
that's how you got 4. Did any of those children, were they asked to give a Q-tip in their mouth, a little swab?
No.
Okay. Now, when you came back, the person we now know as Jessica, she was standing behind Victoria. Is that right?
Correct.
And Victoria told you it was her birthday,
Yes.
and she was going to have her party the next day when school got out early,
Yes.
something like that. Did she invited you to her party?
Yes.
Do you remember you said, well, you might want to ask your mom about who you're inviting or something like that?
Yes.
But she seemed happy. She wasn't frightened or anything.
No, she wasn't frightened.
You told Victoria you'll see her tomorrow, and you gave her a hug.
Yes. I said, I don't know if I'm coming or not, but let me give you your hug anyway. And I gave her a hug.
Now, was she going to other apartments to invite people? Was that your understanding, or?
That's what I heard later on from my neighbors, that she was going around inviting people to her party the next day.
Okay. And you saw her again on her way back from somebody's apartment, and she still had her kitten in her hand.
That is the first time I saw her with the cat coming from somebody's apartment. That is correct.
Okay. Now, when you saw Jessica with her, Jessica looked sober, but not very friendly. Would you agree with that?
I believe so. That's what I said. She just seemed not very friendly. I wouldn't be able to tell if she was sober or not, but she wasn't very friendly.
But do you remember being asked in June of 2020, could you tell me the demeanor of Jessica, if she was sober or not sober? And you said, page 7, she looked sober, but she didn't seem very friendly or approachable.
That's what I said.
So she looked sober, but you didn't have that much of a chance to gauge.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm going to need you to speak up a little bit. We're not getting good audio for the court monitor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, you had no idea Victoria was in danger at that time, did you?
No.
And that's when you went to the park in 2 cars, 4 kids, and how many adults?
3 adults.
3 adults, 4 kids. And according to your phone, based on, who were you talking to on the phone?
My mother.
Your mom. You came back right around 8:40.
Correct.
And your car, your husband's truck was between you and the car where Michelle and Fabian were.
Correct.
Right? So you could see out a little better than you could see to the side.
Yes.
Now, the parking lot was empty except for your 3 vehicles.
I don't remember if it was completely empty, but I do know that it was empty enough that there was a space on the other side of Michelle's car because her door was open and I could see her hanging out of the car. So there was no car there. There may have been one in the next couple spaces, so that's how I know it's pretty empty. I mean, it wasn't full.
Completely empty,
Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
wasn't full or anything.
Exactly.
Now, did you ever see a strange vehicle? One that would stand out or didn't belong there?
No.
And you never saw a male go upstairs or feel the rumble of somebody going up or down the stairs into Michelle's apartment?
During what time, sorry?
Well, during the times that you were there, for example, after you came back from the park, you didn't see anybody.
I didn't see anybody. But again, we had 4 kids now in the apartment. I'm talking about when I'm alone at home with my 2 kids is when I felt it, when I paid attention more to what was going on. But we had 4 kids in the house at that time, so I wouldn't be able to tell you if somebody came or went.
Because there's more noise in your house.
Yes, exactly.
It's all right. And that's when you saw Jessica bring the child down.
Correct.
And you thought she was sleeping.
Correct.
You thought maybe the girl was that woman's own daughter.
Correct. I thought they were here for the party, and that was her daughter, and they were going home.
You thought maybe they were waiting for a ride or something. That's why she was out there.
Correct.
So it didn't alarm you that this happened at the time.
No.
But you did notice that the woman, who we now know as Jessica, almost dropped her, or she was struggling a lot with carrying
Correct.
the child. Is that true?
Yes.
Did you happen to notice the color of the clothes that Victoria had?
Not that time. I couldn't see her clothes. I saw them earlier in the day.
Okay. What was she wearing earlier in the day?
I believe it was a flowered shirt. I don't know if it was shorts or skirt, denim.
Denim,
Yeah.
jean-like.
Yes.
And Fabian and Michelle were sitting in their car listening to pretty loud music and having a good time.
Yes.
And I think you said, as you were pulling in, you noticed that Michelle's door was open a little bit.
Yes.
And you thought maybe they had been drinking a little bit, but nothing abnormal.
Yeah. It was strange to see Michelle out there like that. I never seen that before. So it was, yeah. But I mean, she was probably just having a good time. She was probably just listening to music. They were singing, so I thought they were having a good time.
She's not a party animal or somebody that's crazy or anything, is she?
No.
Just a regular person, a regular mom.
Correct.
So Jessica turned around and took Victoria back upstairs. Did you see that?
Yes.
And then Jessica comes back outside without Victoria.
Correct.
And as she passed you, you were moving groceries, was it, into the house? Or?
No. This is the time we came back from the park, so we were just making our way up with the kids. I believe maybe my sister was in front of me. I know my husband was carrying the baby in the car seat behind me.
Okay, so everybody had been to the park and pretty tired and ready to go in and go to bed?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you heard, I think the first thing you heard was a male voice. Is
Yes.
that right?
Yes.
Did you hear a female voice saying anything just before he responded, or was he the first thing you heard?
It was the first thing I heard.
And that was loud enough to wake you up?
Yes. I don't know how loud it was. It was 3:40 in the morning, so I mean anybody speaking outside would have sounded pretty loud.
Now you say outside, but isn't it possible, if their windows are open, that they might not have been in the balcony, they could have been even in their bedroom?
No, they would have to be outside. I can't hear what's going on inside of the apartment. I mean, unless they were like on the window, I wouldn't be able to hear it. They had to be outside.
And right away you start hearing shouting and thumping in the master bedroom.
Correct.
How much time between what you think is in the porch and when you hear the shouting, thumping in the master bedroom?
It wasn't long. I believe I heard maybe the end of the conversation probably, and it wasn't very long before the fighting started.
Okay. And you did hear Michelle say, "Stop it."
Yes.
And would you agree there's this initial noise, thumping, dragging, I think you said, but there was a little period where it got quiet again.
Yes.
And did you think maybe it's over?
Yes.
It's just maybe a domestic? That's what your thoughts were?
If they were drinking earlier and they were having a great time, they're probably like arguing now. It did seem scary, but we weren't sure what to do at that moment.
Okay, and then you started hearing noise again?
Yes, but it was a very short period before the front door slammed, and so we went to the front.
All right, and that's when you go on your side to the front window.
Correct.
Because that's the best way to see what's coming from their side.
Yes.
And when you saw, I think you saw both Fabian and Michelle at this point, or?
Yes, I saw, we saw Fabian and Michelle at the front area that I pointed out earlier, the grass and the sidewalk in front of the windows.
So the way that window is, you can't really see the landing, but you can see once they're down on the ground?
I believe you can see the landing. You can see just the landing. I don't think you could see up the stairs, and you cannot see, obviously you can't see in, but I think maybe you can't see the landing, because I could see Michelle coming down and maybe stopping at the landing and then keep going, and he was coming this way. So I believe you can see the landing from the window.
And when you say he was coming this way, if you could help us a little, and I'm going to try to blow this up. So I think this is your building,
Correct.
and you're on this side, and they're on that side. Where did you see him coming around?
Well, he was coming from the left-hand side. So if you're standing inside of my apartment, which is 806, the other one, a little bit up, that one. So if you're standing there, he's coming from the left side, so down. Now
This side?
This side, yes. He's coming from
So
this
is
area.
he headed the direction that my camera is showing?
Yes, he's heading up towards the stairs.
Okay. And then Michelle is heading down the stairs.
Correct.
And she's crying, isn't she?
Yes.
She looks scared,
Yes.
frantic,
Yes.
freaking out.
Yes.
And she says, I think she killed her.
Correct.
And at that moment, Fabian Gonzales, he didn't look frantic or scared at that moment, did he?
No, he just said, "Come on, babe."
And they went toward the other part of the duplex, that they headed, I guess that would be south.
I don't exactly know which way they went. I just know he grabbed her. I could have sworn he went back the way he was coming from.
Okay, so when he came to get her, he was headed this direction, right?
So then they went back.
And then when they left together, they were headed the other direction.
Back down, yes.
That's all I have, thank you.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Yes, sir. Just to clarify, I'm not sure the answer here, but you talked about seeing Fabian, the defendant, once with Victoria walking to Michelle's car by the office.
Correct.
Was that the same day as this or a different day?
I don't remember that was not the day. That was not the day everything happened. It must have been days before.
You said you have 2 kids of your own?
Correct. Yes.
Boys or girls?
I have 2 boys.
And how old were they at this time?
I believe the little one was only 10 months old, and the older one might have been 4, because his birthday was in July.
Did either of your kids play with Victoria that day of her birthday?
They did not.
What about your sister's kids? Are those boys or girls?
She had a little boy and a little girl at the time, and her daughter was a baby as well, and her son is 2 years older than mine, or 3 years. So, but he didn't play with them either.
You talked about the neighbors saying that Victoria was going around asking, like inviting to her birthday. Which neighbors told you that?
I remember Pauline saying that she came over to invite because Jessica was outside. And, well, actually, I heard it from Pauline because Pauline talked to most of my neighbors. So she was the one that told me, yeah, she was right next door knocking and telling the kids to come to the party. So she told me that she was over there, and she also asked Jessica to come. So that's why I knew she was going around asking.
Jessica's Pauline's daughter?
Yes.
Do you know which other neighbors?
And then, I don't know if she asked my downstairs neighbor, I can't remember. But it was mostly because I didn't really know anybody in the other buildings. It was just our building, and I didn't actually know anybody down there except for Pauline and Sabrina right downstairs.
So she went to Pauline. Did she go to Sabrina?
I don't know if she went to Sabrina's house. I can't remember if she told me or not.
So you're not sure if she actually made which neighbor she might have talked to?
Yeah, I'm not sure who she talked to.
Just so we're very clear, I think we were, but Mr. Aaron was pointing at these buildings and saying your apartment was here and theirs was up here, but in fact you were right next door, correct?
Yes, we're right next door.
So you weren't on this other side of the building, you were directly walls connected next door.
Yes, we're walls connected next door.
The encounter that you had with Jessica Kelly, you said was very brief. It's just bringing the groceries up?
Yes.
Were you making a big assessment on Miss Kelly as to her state of mind or her intoxication level?
No, I just thought she was maybe a quiet, not so friendly person from maybe the wrong side of the tracks, you would say. She just seemed very not belonging there.
Did she seem paranoid?
I can't say that I noticed she was paranoid. I just noticed that she was incredibly unfriendly. And by unfriendly, I just mean when you meet another adult, especially when, she's next to somebody I know, I mean, the right thing to say is, hi, my name is, or, she could have introduced herself. When I made a joke and looked up at her and she wasn't smiling, she was just making a terrible face at me. I was like, okay.
So she chose kind of to just not interact.
Yeah.
And how long do you think this went on for? A minute? 2 minutes? Less?
It might have been more than 5 minutes because I still had a time to hug her, and it could have been 1 or 2, 3 minutes. I don't know how long our conversation was. It wasn't very long, but she had time to invite me. Like I said, I made that little comment or whatever, so, but we were there for a little bit and then they gave her a hug. So it could have been a few minutes, yeah.
We have a moment. No further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
May she be excused?
She may.
All right, you may sit down, thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and take our lunch break, and we'll bring you back at 1:15. Thank you. All rise to the jury.